Many people believe that just because they are anxious, then it means that they have an anxious personality. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Anxiety isn't part of your personality. It is a symptom to your brain perceiving a threat or several threats. Just as you cannot have a chronic pain personality, you cannot have an anxious personality. Both anxiety and chronic pain are symptoms that result from a threat. In this video, I'm going to be exploring one aspect of dealing with anxiety in a more straightforward way by working with the body's physiology. So let's get started. The symptom of anxiety happens when the brain perceives some sort of threat in our environment or within ourselves. This is a natural response, and it's important to remember that it's a natural response in all animals, not just human beings. When an animal is exposed to a threat, let's say a predator, the anxiety response kicks off so that animal can escape the predator, hopefully. So it really doesn't make sense when you look at it this way to make anxiety or to consider anxiety as being a part of you, your identity. It is just a response that happens naturally and automatically, and you cannot always control that initial response. What we can control is the kind of environment we're in, the kind of output we give our body and input we give our body, so that in the long term, we will have this threat response less and less, and we will feel less anxious. So there are various factors that you have to address when it comes to reducing your anxiety. It's usually not just one thing that will eliminate everything, right? In this video, I'm going to be focusing more on the physiology, on the body, because at the end of the day, anxiety is a feeling that we experience when something is going on in the body as a result of a threat. That means that physiologically, on a physical level, the body is undergoing certain changes. Based on this fact that anxiety is a symptom, it makes sense then to try to address the underlying cause that is causing this symptom, rather than getting all worked up on dealing with anxiety directly or eliminating it directly. Let me give you one example to illustrate this point a little bit better. Let's say that you have a thought today, and your thought goes like, my project at work may be a total failure. I might get looked down on, I might get rejected, I might get fired. That thought will actually activate your nervous system and will cause a feeling of anxiety. It might cause an increased heart rate. It might cause increased inflammation in the body, a headache, tension, chronic pain, a flare-up. One of those symptoms is anxiety, that feeling that we identify as anxiety, that discomfort in the chest, those palpitations, or whatever other symptoms you experience alongside anxiety. However, anxiety in that case, as you can see, is the symptom. The cause of that anxiety was that thought you have. And usually we have so many catastrophic thoughts, so many negative thoughts that automatically fire the anxiety response. This is what makes us different from animals. Animals experience anxiety when they perceive a real threat, usually, like a predator, as we said before, but humans tend to experience anxiety whenever they think catastrophically about the future or whenever they think about unpleasant experiences in the past. And so we are a little bit more complicated in that way. But still, it's important to recognize, like in this example, that the thought was the underlying cause of the anxiety. That means that it's not the anxiety that is defining you. That's not the problem. The anxiety is just the response. So how can we work with reducing our anxiety responses in our day-to-day life? In this video, I'm going to be focusing more on how we can work with the physiology, with the body. Because as I've explained before, anxiety is a physiological response. It is experienced physically in the body. So I find that when someone is extremely anxious or nervous or he cannot find the time to focus, or it's totally scattered, I find that the easiest way to start is by working a little bit with the body itself. And I'm just going to be mentioning a few techniques here. You always have to find the ones that are best for you, but one of the techniques is meditation. So with meditation, we are staying with our feelings, with our thoughts, and giving them less judgment. You can start with just a 5-minute or a 3-minute meditation. It's all about giving your brain a little break, right, from the usual running thoughts and the usual problem-fixing mode. And instead, for those 5 minutes, you are just observing what's going on in your body, maybe in your surroundings. So there are various ways in which you can meditate. You can focus on the sounds around you, on the environment around you, and really notice without judgment. You can also notice how you're feeling in your body. When you're extremely anxious, I advise to start with the environment first, to start with a minute or two of just noticing the sounds around you, maybe the sights around you if you're outside, maybe noticing the air against your skin, and then maybe starting to notice how it feels to have your body sitting on the chair, the contact between the chair and your body, or if you're standing up, the contact between your feet and the ground. If you find it very hard to sit still, I would recommend a walking meditation wherein you just go for a short walk and focus on that movement of walking step by step, and maybe also taking in your surroundings, maybe listening to the sounds of nature or the sounds of the city, and not judging these sounds or sights, but just pretending that you're seeing them with an interested mind, a curious mind. And you can do this just for a minute and you will already feel the benefits. So you don't need to do it all the time, because a lot of people tell me that they can't escape their thoughts, they keep coming at them. And it's okay if you get catastrophic or anxious thoughts. You can notice them, don't beat yourself up for having them, but just then redirecting your attention to the present moment, to your meditation or to your walking meditation or to your environment, that can already start to calm down your nervous system. So we've actually mentioned 2 things here. One of them is mindfulness meditation, where you're going to sit or lie down and really follow a guided meditation, so you can notice different parts of your body without judgment. Normally also mindfulness meditation will guide you to notice your breath coming in and out. So that's one of the things. The other one, if you find sitting still extremely hard for now, is walking meditation. So it's just going out, noticing your movements as you walk, noticing your environment. Maybe the other one is just standing or sitting still for a minute and noticing what is. Just noticing how you're feeling in the body, the contact between your body and the chair, your feet and the ground. Some people call this grounding. Some people call this active meditation, because you're just taking in all the sensations that you are feeling in the present moment. One other thing I'd like to recommend, if you find this really difficult, is to set a timer of a minute and try to breathe as slowly as you can, but without too much force or pressure, and aim to have between 4 to 6 breaths per minute. I thought in the beginning that this would be very hard for me, but actually after a few tries, I managed to go down to just 4 slow breaths per minute. Doing this consciously, intentionally, for a minute or 2 each day can really calm down the system. Because usually we're going on from one thing to another, trying to solve one problem or another, ruminating. But for that minute or 2, you're just focusing on taking slow breaths, and the nervous system responds so well to this conscious intake of slower breathing. There are other ways, of course, in which you can work with your body's physiology to reduce your anxiety. other techniques that I am not qualified to teach, like breathwork, for example, some forms of yoga. However, when it comes to yoga and some forms of movement like Tai Chi or other therapies, if you have chronic pain, it's important to do an exercise or a practice that doesn't create fear around your body, because this is where people with chronic pain then encounter difficulty. They try to do yoga to relax their nervous system, but at the same time there would be a pose which would send a threatening message about their body. Maybe they're not trusting that their back can handle the pose, or that their shoulder can handle this pose. So as they're doing it, they're starting to fear their shoulder. They're starting to expect a flare-up. And when we are working with calming the nervous system, it's important to do things that feel safe to us. The topic of challenging your body to get out of chronic pain is a separate topic. In this video, I'm just talking about calming the nervous system in order to experience less anxiety responses in your life. Another thing I'm going to mention in this video, although it doesn't have much to do with working with the body directly, in order to reduce anxiety, it's essential that you reduce the exposure to threatening news or situations. So what I mean is that there's certain content that we consume sometimes on a daily basis that causes anxious thoughts in us, thoughts that create anxiety. That includes watching really, really bad news, right? Following the news diligently. It also includes being around people who are negative or who are following the news and telling you all about the dreadful things that are happening in the world today. And the problem with this is that we have absolutely no control over most of these issues. Not having any control and knowing about all the details of these issues will only cause an anxiety response in your body. So if you're serious about calming the anxiety response, you have to reduce exposure to this kind of content. If you have a health issue or chronic pain, it's also essential to reduce exposure to negative messages about your body or negative messages about your condition, including then Google searches, articles on the internet about your condition that portray it as incurable or really dreadful, or being in groups where there are people suffering from your condition that are constantly saying how awful it is. So it's extremely important that you protect yourself from this exposure, and I guarantee you will experience a significant decrease in your anxiety level. So this is just one aspect of working with anxiety that's usually essential in the beginning when someone is still really in a heightened state, when someone feels all over the place, unable to control those anxious sensations. It's not the entire solution. When there is anxiety and chronic pain, usually one also has to work on two other aspects, and one of them is emotional repression, what's being repressed, what you're denying to yourself, and the other is your relationships with yourself, with other people, and with the world. I will create another video about relationships specifically. It's a totally, it's a whole topic in itself. But I just thought I'd mention this here because I know that a lot of people tell me, oh, I've tried so many things. I've tried meditation, I've tried yoga, breathing and whatever, and it hasn't worked. And I just wanted to emphasize that these are just tools to calm your body's stress response. But in this case, you're just working with the symptom, in a sense. You're working with decreasing the symptom of anxiety. You're not working with what is causing the symptom to fire up, right? Which usually are our thoughts and our relationships with other people, with ourselves, with the world around us. So it's these underlying issues then that we need to also be brave enough to work on. And this is something that I address also in my online pain-free breakthrough program. If any of you are interested, it consists of 14 lessons that take you through the process of overcoming chronic pain. And of course, it also has important topics on reducing anxiety, because anxiety, just like chronic pain, is a symptom. Some people experience both of them together, anxiety and chronic pain. Some people experience just one or the other, but to simplify matters, we just have to remember that it's a symptom, and therefore we always have to work on eliminating the underlying causes. So I hope I've given you some ideas, something to think about. And with that said, I'll see you again in the next one. Bye-bye.